Today we'll be doing the Balance Council tier list for the January Balance Council, as is tradition. Quickly, we have the top tier, which are my favorite changes. These are things that might make a new deck playable, something like that, or a card that seems like no play really viable. The good changes are ones that are good, they improve the game. Neutral changes I'm not too sure about, or I don't feel strongly about either one. Questionable changes are things I'm not too sure about, but I think are probably not good, but I'm not certain about it. So it's kind of like neutral, but I don't think it's a good probably. I have some reservations about it, let's say. Bad are changes I don't like, and I think are not good. And not talking about it, these are cards that changed 4 more times, and I'm just tired of talking about them, so I'm just going to throw them down here, and that'll kind of just be at me like a brief sentence or something. So, for these changes, we have, first of all, the provision increases. For the leaders, this will be buffs. I don't know why we're buffing Imprisonment and Enslave in particular. I mean, these are already played leaders, and they're Enslave in particular is extremely good as a leader ability. So I'm not sure why we're buffing the leader ability. Doesn't make any sense to me. And also Imprisonment. This is one of the more boring leader abilities. It just gives you locks. And it's good value because you can save these locks and lock important stuff. So I'm not sure why these are getting buffed. This one I dislike more than this one. You could see this, but I don't like buffing leaders in general for played leaders at least. So I'm not sure what's up with this. Doesn't make sense to me. Put the Syndicate Bounty one in questionable. Bounty's always been meta dependent. If the meta is high big guys, bounty's pretty good. If it's not, or they can have enough control to kill off your bounty spenders, it's not great. Not a big fan of this either. Heist, I'm not sure it falls in this one yet. I don't really care one way or the other about Heist. It's very strong, and the decks with it are really annoying, but they don't seem to be the best decks, so we'll just leave this one in here for now. Coup is incredibly strong. The buff to 9, the argument I think was to put it in Golden Necker. No one did that. It was just a buff to the card. Coup is very, very good. I'm not sure why it was buffed, but yeah, I think Coup overall at 9 was kind of ridiculous. It's such a high value card. Kikimore Queen, I really hate this one. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I don't understand why I took Kikimore Queen out of Golden Necker range. She'd been in there forever, like a long time, and like that deck oppressive? I don't think so. And this just completely kills the card because now no one's gonna play it. So I really don't like that. Secret Service goes to 7. This card is in pretty much every Northern Realms deck in the entire game, and Northern Realms was one of the top 2 factions of the last season. The top 2 factions, I believe, were Syndicate and Northern Realms. So I guess this makes sense. I don't hate it one way or the other. It is a really annoying card because it removes your lock, so it feels like if your deck only runs like 1 or 2 locks, it just feels like those cards are completely useless, which is annoying. And they just play it for thinning anyway, like it's just a free thin, I guess. So I see it. I don't have a strong feeling about it. Open Sesame's going down here. Open Sesame just limits Syndicate's design so much that I see why it goes down. I see why people nerf it, but it also really hurts Vice. So I don't have, yeah. Highland Warlord's going down here because it's been changed so many times, but this is what it should be at. It's a 6th version card. Primal Savagery is a card that was not really on my radar to get changed, but if you think about it, it does kind of make sense. It is an 8 for 4 if you get the Death Blow on a 2 power unit, a 7 for 4 on a 1 power unit, and it used to be this value, really high value, was balanced out by the fact it's kind of hard to trigger Death Blow. It's not hard to trigger Death Blow. I see this. I'd rather just keep the Highland Warlord change. But I guess if we're assuming Highland Warlord stays at 5, this is here. This without Highland Warlord would be good. With Highland Warlord getting changed, putting it neutral. Overall, I'm pretty neutral about it. I guess mainly it's exploited by Highland Warlord. Outside of Highland Warlord, I think it's fine. I've seen it occasionally in Self Wound to trigger Small Blood. Artaud. Artaud is a really good card. I'm doubtful about this one. I don't really think this is great, especially combined with all the Nilfgaard leader buffs. So, I mean, it's like a 2 provision buff there. Jan, it's going down here. Jan's balanced when the other Nilfgaard thinning options are competitive with him, which I guess people didn't think they were. So, Fallen Rayla though, top tier. I love this card. This card's really fun. You can make some really interesting decks with it. Definitely top tier. Hopefully this lets us get some more Fallen Rayla poison decks. I've played them. They're pretty fun. Speaking of top tier, we're putting Hemdall up there too. As buff to 11 didn't seem to get a lot of play. Buff to 10 is a much bigger deal because 10 is 1, a much more stomachable provision cost, and 2, replayable with Fukusha, so you can replay some stuff with him maybe do some fun shenanigans. I think this might actually make Heimdall playable. Baratheon's getting buffed as well here. When I say buff, these are provision decreases. We started the provision decreases with Jan, I believe. So Jan, Heimdall, Fallen Rayla were provision decreases. And Arta, those are the provision decreases. I should have made it clearer. Then we have Baratheon's. Baratheon's, I think, is fine getting changed. Baratheon's didn't really see that much play, but there's a lot of assimilate buffs here, so I'm not sure how I feel about that. Artist, top tier. We've been pushing for this one for a while ourselves. Really want to see Artist be playable. If you can make a deck based around him, it really helps to have him in Fukusha range, so you can do that and have a deck based around him. Land of 1,000 Fables. This is one I did not see coming. It's really interesting as a tutor for Golden Necker that's not Arcane Tome, because you'd always play Arcane Tome to tutor Golden Necker if you wanted to, otherwise just count on your thinning. That's interesting. It also just is a buff to playing specials in general. I think this is really interesting, actually. I don't think it'll make that big a difference, although maybe some Golden Necker decks will play it. The order doesn't get much value there, so you're really paying a lot to tutor the Golden Necker, but you're willing to do that because it's such a key card in the deck, and maybe you get some use out of the order. This is the only deck that actually normally plays this card is Sihil decks, but I don't see them getting much better just because Sihil is design limited, we'll say. But yeah, I think this is a good change overall to the card. I don't think it'll make a huge difference, but maybe we'll see some experiment with it. Maybe I'm underestimating its use in Golden Necker because there are other cards you play in those decks that maybe you want to play at specific times. I think this is a really interesting one. Mantis Stock. I mean, overall, this is a good change. I don't think it makes too much of a difference. Maybe at 5, you get 6 and a poison. Maybe that's an option. The reason I can see this being an option is specifically in the heist decks for Angus, because this is a 5 provision trap. So you can save a provision by not putting in like Crushing Trap or something. You put in like the cheaper traps. Megascope. All right, guys, I'm going to put this one in questionable. I like myself some Megascopes as well. I'll put it in. Let's reversion here. Yeah, I'll put it here. I like myself some Megascopes, but Megascopes is very strong for 4 provisions, guys. I like it. I see there are downsides, right? You have to wait 2 turns. The unit has to be on the board, but come on, it's 2 turns. It's not that big a deal to wait the 2 turns because the timer goes off immediately. So you get the points effectively 1 turn later. It's delayed points. Yeah, Erendite cares, but outside of that, this is just giving you copies of stuff for 4 provisions. I'm not sure that's good, but we'll see, I guess, again. I still saw this at Played at 5, by the way. So we have Ban Our Tutor. It's a good change. This card was so obnoxious at 5 provisions because you want it to go off like at least 2 or 3 times for it to be like on curve, and that wouldn't happen. It's like half the time it dies at 4. Half the time you're not getting to 4 specials, so this makes more sense as a 4 provision card. It's a really niche engine. The fact that there'd be unique specials limits it, and I think that's fine. Now we are into the power increases. So these are power buffs. We'll start off with Justinia. I'm not sure about Justinia's one. Pirates was still a pretty popular deck last season, and Justinia was still played in some of the Pirates decks, but not all of them. I didn't have a huge problem with Justinia, but understood why she got nerfed. I don't really care one way or the other on her. On the other hand, Yennefer Conjure. This is another card we've personally pushed for to get buffed, and I'm really glad she did. The 6 power makes a big difference on her. She's a really fun card, and we're going to try her out for sure this season. And along with her is Ciri. Ciri, like I said before, these both, basically, if you look at the gold neutral tier list, which is pretty recent, what I'm basically saying here is what got addressed on that. What I said in the tier list got addressed here. At 5, she's too easy to kill, and you lose your commitment. So at 4 power, she's too easy to kill, you lose your commitment. She just come back to your hand. That's good. She has a little more tempo. And at 5, she's too easy to kill for a reliable engine because it takes a lot of time for her to get value. So I'm really glad those got changed. Triss Butterflies is only ever played in Renfrey, and she's kind of fallen out of Renfrey. I think she's like exclusively hand buff Renfrey now. I'm not a big Renfrey player normally, so can't really comment too much. Although we did play a Cohen Uprising deck with Renfrey this season. I don't really have feelings about this. It's probably fine because the only deck to play this is hand buff. She's like lost her spot as a tutor in the game, and I'd like to see her as a more competitive tutor. So I get the power, because that makes sense. Riptide's going down here. He's always getting changed. Riptide. Whatever Riptide's value is, people will play him because Monsters doesn't have control. So it doesn't really matter. He's still going to get played. It's just how much you want to hurt the faction. Then we have Anna Henrietta here, going from 3 to 4 power. Funnily enough, this nerfs coup because you can't coup enemy Henriettas. If you any enemy Anna Henriettas, um, I want to see Anna Henrietta get played. She already got played a little bit. So this is a fun one. I like to see this. Usually copying the opponent's leader. A leader is usually worth like 8 to 9 points, but remember some of synergies, so she has mixed range value there. This might be good enough for her to get played more frequently. I like this one. Roach. Going down here because he always gets changed. Roach is really strong, really good tutor. I personally think he might be better at 3, but whatever. The mutated hounds, they didn't get played at 5 power. Really what you're looking for is, usually how I think about poisons is the poison's half of the thing you kill. If you play this melee for the 2 bleeding, it's now 8 for 5, which is a little bit under curve probably. It's like okay. It's like okay, not great, and the bleeding takes time. But if you poison something, you get half the killed thing's poison, so it's like 2.5 points there, 3. I think this is good. The card didn't get played at 5, so this is a good change. Kidwani Knight is worth 1 more when played from the deck now or summoned. I don't think this will make a huge difference. I'm curious if people will come up with ways to do this that makes sense in decks, but this could change the card. Illusionist going down here. Illusionist keeps saying changed. Illusionist is the best bonded card in the game, and the fact that it's in the faction that can spam the most copies of it means it gets more play there than anything else. And the fact that sometimes you're just afraid of Illusionist rather than the actual deck's threat in certain matchups is kind of obnoxious. Admiral Rompoli. This was a power nerf. We are in the power nerfs now. I'm not sure why this card got changed, to be honest. It's 13 provisions. It's really expensive. Sure, a lock and poison are good statuses to give out. And he does 2 at once, which works well with aristocrats, but I don't really get this one. Like, am I missing something with this? Is there like some obnoxious deck? Like, people don't like status aristocrats, but I mean, we really need to nerf it. It was a good deck. Like, it was definitely a very good deck, but I don't know if this card was really the prime offender in there, but I guess power nerf to him. He goes to 6. It's harder for him to go to 6 now, I guess, because you have to have 3 statuses out, so he's easier to remove. But 13 version cards should have like a good amount of impact. I guess if you don't answer him, he gets out of hand pretty quick. But I don't understand this one. On Crate Raiders, probably good overall. Yeah, he got buffed before. He was already played before. When he first got buffed, I said he was already played before, so I didn't really get it, but On Crate Raiders is in round 3 a 6 with a 2 damage order. That's 8 for 5. That's pretty decent. Before round 3, it's not great. The thing that really enabled him, I think, is the buffs to a boardage. When a boardage went to 5, you're really incentivized to find pirates to put in your deck. And he's just like the pirate you put in your deck now. He's kind of taken away a lot of deck slots in Skellige from other cards. I get that's the reasoning I believe why this got changed. However, I'm not a big hater of this card overall. It just has a lot of stuff going for it. I'm on a neutral. Let's put it next to Justinia. I can see why. But I personally don't have strong feelings. And by the way, because I don't have strong feelings on something doesn't mean I'm right. It just means like I don't have a feeling about it. Elder Bear, this one I believe was an attempt to make Bearification not as bad when you remove an opponent's artifact. So I believe it's the idea for that. It's an idea. Elder Bear's only played in Renfrey Beast because it's a beast name. And effectively, if you played it in Renfrey Beast, it added 2 points to Corrupted Flaminnica. So it's worth like 8 instead of 6, I guess, if you want to attribute the points that way. That's not how I attribute them, but you can. I don't care about this change. The idea is nice, but verifying the opponent's artifact's still going to be such a bad tempo swing. It's still worth it sometimes, but I don't care about this. Living Armor's going down here. We've said our thing about it before. Nausicaa Sergeant's going down here. Everyone knows this. I think this thing's fine at 4, and that Slave Driver's the problem card at 5 provisions. But you know what? Slave Driver's not here, and this got buffed, and this got reverted. So I guess I must be wrong. Prophet, another one I don't get, to be honest. I don't understand the Prophet nerf. It lost a power, like we said, we're in the power nerf category. I don't get it. Cultists are like a incredibly polarized deck. I guess this card's played in Renfree midrange as well sometimes, but I don't really understand this one to be honest, and I don't think it's good necessarily. I don't get this. Ratified Judgment, though, I think is a good one. Like I said, Northern Realms is Syndicate with the top performing factions, and two of their very ubiquitous cards got hit here. Open Sesame and Ratified Judgment. A Judgment here makes sense. Also, a Secret Service, but that card was really strong on its own as a free thinning, I guess. Judgment, though, at 5, it usually did 5 damage, 4 or 5 damage on its order. The fact that it came out as a tempo, it's fine, but it has the order. At 5 versus 4 power, 4 power is easier to remove. A lot of times this comes out, and then it has a threatening like damage that can remove something for tempo pushing. And I think this is fair because it is quite strong when it comes out of the deck, right? A lot of things that come out of the deck are like 5 points, like 8 provisions, 4 points, something like that, 8 or 9 provisions. He's a little more expensive, but he brings that damage order with him, which is really good value. Because what you often do is bring him out the same turn as you develop an engine, so you don't have to pick between killing him and his damage or like killing off one of their engine cards. Then we have Renfree. I'm not talking about Renfree's power nerf. Power nerfs to Renfree are hilarious to me. Then we have the Skirmisher. Because like this is a, I'll explain why it's hilarious. She's mainly played for carryover because you carry over the order after tempo slimming early. So a power nerf to her doesn't really change that much. But we have a Skirmisher nerf. I guess the idea here, I believe, is to make this a 3 power 4 provision card. I don't know about that. I'm willing to experiment with it. Discard package has fallen off a bit, I guess, but I don't really care too much about this. I don't know if it's worth like doing multiple buff slots across a couple councils to get this. And then we have Vanadane, 5 power instead of 6. I'm going to put this in good, I think, actually. I'd much rather see this change than the Heist one. The problem with Vanadane Angus is that when they're at 6 power, you have to remove both or else you lose the game a lot of the time, right? You have to break up the combo removing both, or you have to like just all in round 2, which can be hard for many decks to do. And making him removable for 5 is, I think, a more fair way to address the deck than this, but maybe I'm being a hater as well, as people say I hate some decks. We'll see. Anyway, that is the Balance Council tier list. Overall, we've got some good changes here. Quite a few ones. A lot of ones this season I don't really care about. Usually the neutral's not this full. It's kind of weird. Then we got some questionable ones here and bad ones. I don't know what's up with some of these. Like, what's up with Rompoli? What's the obsession with buffing Nilfgaard leaders? I don't get that either. And I don't understand Profit, and I really don't like their Kiki More Queen Cheech, because I think it just kills her completely. But that's the tier list, guys. Let me know what you guys think, and if you agree. But that is the Balance Council. Let's get into the December season summary. This is what we played. Last season, we played a bunch of games in the beginning of the season, and then, like, it's like the holidays and stuff, so I didn't play much, and then I just, like, finished up the season at the end of the season trying to get my rank score. So we'll just take a look at what we played here. Starting off with the faction distribution. A little bit surprised here. Really even split at the top. 22% Skellige, 20% Nilfgaard. Again, Nilfgaard not the most popular in my games. So it's mainly Skellige, especially near the end of the season. As we got the higher MMRs, it was just pretty much Skellige. At the lower MMRs, it was mainly Nilfgaard. And then we have Scoia'tael and Monsters tied. A bunch of Northern Realms, actually. And then the 4.5%, 4.7% Syndicate, as always. So this is the faction distribution. A little surprising how even it was to me. That's a really good thing, I think, other than Syndicate. I don't think Syndicate's ever going to be on par with the other ones just because of its complexity. But let's check out some decks by faction. So again here, we made these. These are the decks on the bottom. We've got the number of times we saw them on the left here. And we threw on the top number here. This number is the difference from the average MMR of a game I played at. So say my average MMR is 2450 for this season. This would mean that this deck we saw mainly at 2486, so much higher than average, whereas this one would be much lower than the average MMR we saw them at. So I think our average MMR was about 2450 this season, which makes sense because we had the games prior to getting to pro rank, which I just count as like 2400 approximately. And then we've got the ones near the end of the season, we're much higher up. So overall, we got Tatterwing here. Yeah, Tatterwing, very high. This is the highest level monsters deck we saw. We didn't see any of these below like a high MMR. We got a couple Dagon Death Wishes, a couple Renfree Ogroids, a couple Vampires, several Fruits, and mainly Frost. Again, of these, none of them were performing too well. In my games, at least, we saw them at lower MMRs, other than Tatterwing, which we saw much higher, which makes sense. That's how it usually is. For Nilfgaard, we've got quite a few decks here. Let me scroll down here properly. So for Nilfgaard, the most popular decks were Renfree Hyperthin. No surprise though, this deck looked really strong when we played against it. It has a lot going for it. Then we saw the next most commonly Enslave Assimilate, Renfree Midrange. This one didn't do as well. This is like the standard Renfree stuff. And then we've got Soldiers, which we saw mainly at lower MMRs. The Renfree Soldiers did better. Then we've got Shoop Assimilate here, Spotter Soldiers, Tactics Assimilate, and Clog. So Tactics Assimilate is a slave assimilate, but not with the enslaved leader. So this is just playing like assimilate with double cross, but not enslaved leader. I guess you can combine those. And then we got Clog over here. So best performing deck we saw in Nilfgaard appeared to be Clog. We saw those at the highest MMR. I don't think that's actually true. I think it's just a small sample size there. Renfree Hyperthin though was very strong. So was Aristocrats. We didn't only saw like one Aristocrat player though. And this is what we saw in Nilfgaard. It makes a lot of sense here. When Nausicaa and Slave Driver are buffed to their highest potential, we see a lot of these soldier decks and Renfree spamming. So that makes sense here. Again, these are just what the games I saw, the people I saw in my games. Doesn't mean these are the strongest decks out there. Like I think Aristocrats should be really strong up here too. We'll swap into other Realms decks we saw. We've got here, number one, we've got Uprising, Cohen, Witchers. This is the deck we played a little bit as well. We've done videos on this deck before. It's a fun one. Then we got Temple Demavend, quite a bit lower than the average here. It's probably because we played these at the beginning of the season. We hadn't raised our MMR yet. Renfree Traveling Priestess, Knights. So there's two Knights. There's Falibor Knights with the Ancestors, and there's regular Knights, standard deck you guys know. We saw two of each. I just put them together here because they're very, very similar decks, other than the whole Falibor thing at the end. In round 3, they play Falibor with Ale versus something else like Arondites. So I put those two together. They perform pretty similarly. Falibor we saw at lower MMRs, and then regular Knights at higher. As for the rest of this, not too surprising here. Siege Ada Revenants. This is the one that's Devotion with Ada. It's a fun one. And then we saw like some Renfrees, Priestesses, and stuff. Nothing too surprising. And then speaking of not surprising, Skellige, we have 14 Raid Warrior players, as we would expect with a buff to Highland Warlord last season. Skellige Witchers, we've got some of those, some Pirates, some Renfree Beasts, and some Druids. Again, we can tell that when Highland Warlord is buffed, that deck becomes, I wouldn't say oppressive. It's oppressive to some decks for sure. It just becomes super common. If you ask me what the average game I would play last season looks like, it would be a Raid Warrior player at about the average MMR level. Like almost 10% of our games are Raid Warriors, which is always really fun. A little surprised though by the Skellige Witchers. Glad to see them doing pretty well. None of these were like too far off our average MMR, what we encountered. Then we've got Scoia'tael down here. Most common one, this surprised me a lot, was Harmony. It didn't do too well. Like we didn't see them at very high MMRs, but we saw a good number of Harmonies, which was nice. We got Precision Strike Dwarves, Heist Waylays, Hyper Control Precision Strike, Dwarves, regular Dwarves. So this would be the Mahakam Forge. This is a Precision Strike one. That's more mid-range. Then we got Renfree Hand Buff. Pretty low MMRs we saw on those ones. A couple Milva Hyper Controls. Not too surprising here. Scoia'tael loves his damage. The only thing is surprising me is we didn't see more Renfree Precision Strike. We saw a couple, but they were pretty different decks, so I didn't combine them together. And then here we go, most popular syndicate, 2 of each. Fallen Knight's Crimes, the old deck from a while back before they nerfed Fallen Knight again, and some Forgotten Treasures, which I was surprised with how well these seem to be doing. And if we take a look at overall here, the most popular decks we have Raid Warriors, Frost, Renfree Hyperthin, Assimilate, Enslaved Assimilate, I mean Uprising, Cohen Witchers, Pirates, Skellige Witchers, Harmony, Fruits, Renfree Midrange, Knights, and Dwarves. This makes sense. These are all decks I recall playing against quite a bit on the ladder. But speaking of ladder, one of my favorite things is the leader tab here. If you take a look at the leaders we encounter, the most popular monster leader we saw was White Frost. Makes sense. We saw a lot of Frost decks. Then we have Arrakis Swarm. This is a combination of Tatterwing and a couple of Witches Sabbath decks and some other stuff going on here. So quite a bit of those. Fruits of Yizgith, Fruits decks. Makes sense. Overwhelming Hunger. Carapace, Blood Scent. No Force of Nature decks, which is interesting. We'll have to give Kashe a shot again and see if it's decent or not, because I'm surprised by that. For Northern Realms, then, we have the most popular leader is Uprising. Now, that is a surprise. Uprising Witchers have made their comeback. Uprising Been played with the Traveling Priestess combo a bit this season, saw some Renfrey Uprising, so it's nice to see this getting played. All of them getting played. Inspiration is usually the ones most common. They've got Inspired Zeal, Stockpile, Pincer Maneuver, Shield Wall, Mobilization. Decent spread. Naturally, this is the one Reaver player we played this season. For Scoia'tael, we've got Precision Strike once again taking the top here. Usually is. It's really flexible. It can play in a lot of different decks. Then we've got Call of Harmony, Guerrilla Tactics, another flexible one there. Subtite Ambush, Invigorate, Nature's Gift, and Hakam Forge. Symbiosis really fallen off. Haven't really seen any Symbiosis. I don't know. I don't think it's that bad, but could be wrong. For Skellige leaders, we have 12 Patricidal Furies. Once again, Raid Warriors love this thing. Specifically with Abortage being buffed to 5 provisions. Now that that's been happening, people realize, hey, I can just put out a leader charge and play Abortage. And the Bloodthirst 2 is trivial. Then we got Onslaught, Reckless Flurry. This is for Pirates. And then Blaze of Glory, also for Raid Warrior players. Then we've got some Rage of the Sea, the one Rain player, a couple Battle Trance Druids, and one Earthside Ritual Self Wound. Self Wound's still really good, but it's a hard deck to play, so I wouldn't expect to see it too low on the ladder like we played a lot of our games up. I said low on the ladder, I mean like not below top level. Then we have popular Nilfgaard leaders. Tactical Decision, very high up here. A lot of Renfrey decks using this. Like we said, Renfrey Hyperthin was pretty popular. This is the deck for that. Also a couple of mills, you know. Enslave, Imperial Formation, Double Cross, Imposter, Imprisonment, and then Toussaint Hospitality. Like I said, Enslave and Imprisonment already played. Not sure we're buffing those, but we are in the Balance Council. And Toussaint Hospitality, pretty low down here. Would love to see this a little higher up, but this is a more... I think Knights are not the most common deck. They're very meta dependent. Sometimes the meta is very tall punishing, which it seemed to be last season. We ran into a ton of decks playing both Curse of Corruption and Heatwave and Spores, like all three. We ran into a lot of that, so that'd be pretty punishing to these, I guess. The most popular Syndicate leaders here, we've got the 2 Line Pockets, 2 Hidden Caches, 1 Cove, 1 Jackpot, 1 Blood Money, and then some Congregation and some off the books down here. Just not getting played. But Syndicate would never have a good enough sample size for it, I don't think. Overall, those popular leaders are going to be Patricidal Fury, White Frost, Precision Strike, Tactical Decision, Uprise. You guys can see it. We talked about most of these. Not at all surprising. Not at all surprising to me. A lot of this we could see coming, other than Uprising. The Uprising is the only one that is surprising to me. I didn't see that coming at the beginning of the season. At the beginning of the season, I saw a lot of these other ones coming. We saw Lost Balance Council. As far as the deck types, just briefly here, a lot of mid-range engine, pretty evenly split. Some control, some combo, and a little bit of point slam. Nothing too crazy here. The combo decks are falling off. Well, I think these are balancing out, which is interesting to see. And lastly here, any neutral packages we've got. So these have fallen off quite a bit. We've got 6% Renfrey. So what's that? 1 out of every 19 games is a Renfrey deck. That's better than normal. Usually it's like 1 out of... We've seen it as high as 1 out of 3, I think. And then we've got Golden Necker falling off here. It's taken some big nerfs. Like Golden Necker itself is like 11 provisions now. And we got Shoop, Dragon, Construct Bombs. I think a lot of these could use some help. I'm not sure I voice cracked there. But yeah, I think a lot of these could use some help. Shoop got nerfed, so it makes sense. The thing with nerfs is whenever something's nerfed, people stop playing it, even if it's still good, just because of the perception that's been nerfed. I think Shoop's still good, but we'll get into that later. As far as devotion, we're at 69% non-devotion, 31% devotion that we saw this season. And then lastly, everyone's favorite category, the disconnectors, emo spammers. We've got the people who disconnected on us were Witches, Sabbath, Eider players. So one of the Renfrey Ogroid players, one of the Frost players, and a Assimilate player. Druids and a Renfrey Beast. This is a separate row. Just do that. Druids, Self Wound, and Renfrey Beast. These are all people disconnected. As far as emote spammers, doubling up. Both of the Philibor Knight players we played emote spammed on us. Then they emote spammed on us. One of them, I think, won because we didn't have removal. The other one had a 50-point Philibor, and then we heat waved it, and then he disconnected until the last second, then undisconnected and forfeited. And 2 of the Frost players spammed emotes on us. And that will be the season summary. The last thing here, we'll throw back in the Gwent data one because this one's a fun one here. So this is our ranked score here. You can go to Gwent data if you're in the top 2,500, see yourself up here. So last season we had 9890 MMR. We finished at all of our peaks, which is great. Just didn't play enough games there. We're at number 340, so you can kind of see top 500 doesn't mean that much anymore for data. You really got like top 250, top 100 for relevant statistics because we are definitely not a good sample size. We didn't play that many games. We had a general win rate of 65%, 66%. That's really good, actually. And the top 4 faction win rates was 71. You'll love to see it. So overall, if we take a look at what we played here, we didn't play any Nilfgaard because I wasn't interested in soldiers, which is what got buffed with Nausicaas and stuff. We played some, the Syndicate win rate here, 78%. We only played like 10 games. It's not a great data set. As far as the rest, though, we played a lot of Skellige, 67%, Monster, 68%. We played Frost for this. Mainly, we played Frost. And then for Scoia'tael, we played Golden Necker Harmony almost exclusively this season. Really strong deck. Highly recommend it. And then we've got Skellige. This was a variety of decks here. We did a little bit of Raid Warriors because you guys requested that at the beginning of the season, but then we played a variety of mainly Golden Necker Self Wound. Played a lot of Golden Necker season. We played Golden Necker Self Wound, Golden Necker Harmony. And then for Northern Realms here, we mainly did some Cohen Uprising Witchers, and then experimented with Sorceress of the Lodge only lore deck again, which one day will be finished. So you can see we played mainly Skellige, Scoia'tael monsters. And then, yeah, you can see like we played some at the beginning of the season, then we didn't, and then we had to finish up here, just finish up our placements the very last day. And overall, you can see like our win rates down here, monsters, again. So overall, this is what we played this season. We did pretty well, I'd say. You love to see high win rates like this, but then again, Northern Realms was the one we just rushed a bunch of games through at the last end of the season after trying some lore decks. So that will be it for this season, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed and had some fun. The Balance Council was interesting. I'm not sure I approve of some of these changes, but we'll see how much it affects the next season. And there are some things to try out here. So we'll be excited to try out a lot of these top tier cards. We'll have some fun with, hopefully. And then that will be it for the season summary. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys had fun. And we will see you in the next one. We'll actually be playing one of these new decks.